for me, what is important today is to have an attitude. And an attitude is not just about art. It's about how you are in your life. And especially for me, the attitude, I transform this idea of attitude by what I post, what we publish, which is not linked only with art. It can be linked with philosophy, it can be with luxury. Because we want to bring a kind of way to look at things and perhaps to inspire people. Communicating. I think communication today, you cannot, it's becoming something absolutely very, very important. And what is, I should say, more difficult today is that to have your voice heard, audible, it's becoming very, very difficult. We have decided to go into a certain type of communication. And especially, we go through LinkedIn. First, interesting numbers. LinkedIn, even a small collection like DSL, very small collection, you can be very disruptive in terms of community. We have 35,000 people following me. I have 35,000. The Louvre have 51,000. And the Centre Pompidou, 50,000. So I'm not in competition with them, but I mean that we can build, even any collector, any gallery, any museum can build a very strong community around itself. But it has to bring great ideas. It has to be relevant for the people. It has to be clear. I mean, it's no more about communicating. It's communicating with someone. You have to replace the idea of communication, but something much more with this, which is communicating with others. This is what is very interesting today. The other thing which is very interesting is that more and more we are becoming, I shall say, producer of content. We produce a lot of content. And especially, you have now the magazine that will be released this week. We had the chance to have Elisa Ganivet, who is a philosopher, historian of art, who wrote what I call an e-magazine. The title is "Has Decadence Finally Become Harmonious?" It's not at all about art. It's not about technology, but it's about how the collection can be seen through the eyes of a philosopher. And this type of magazine, which is produced also by Hélène Ho, we send it to 86,000 people. We have today to our magazine something like 30% the open rate. And this is something also very important, is that more and more we will become producer of content, either digital content, either physical content, printing content. But we have to become more and more producer of content. It comes back to the idea of attitude. It comes back to the idea of, making the collection being a platform of idea. What is the impact of social networks? I'll just take you an example. The Musée du Louvre, they have 4 million followers. Banksy has 10 million followers. And Banksy became famous because of the followers. He never had an exhibition in a museum. He became famous because he had his presence on the social networks. And this is something very, very important today, is that everybody can become, famous by using, this kind of tool. Even more important than that.
Artists become famous through their friends, not the originality of their works.
This is a survey made by ArtNet. So you understand how it's today difficult to try to, I shall say, to vision what is the value of an artist or the value of an artwork because of all that. You are obliged at a certain time. You know, for instance, when someone speaks to me, when someone say, you know, you should collect this artist, you know, my first reflex, I go on Google and I see how many pages he has. And then after, naturally, I look at his work. Naturally, I look at the galleries behind. Naturally, I look at the most important is the work has its place in the collection, because this is the most important thing. But today, my reflexes are different from what it used to be 10 years or 15 years ago. 15 years ago, what you should have done, you have taken the list of all the museums exhibition where he has been. You have taken the critics, what has been written on him. Today, I don't think it's the right way people do. People today, they go on art price and they go and they say, in which gallery is he from? You know, I'm very interested. Very often my friends come to me and they say, you know, I bought an art from Gagosian. They don't even tell me the name of the artist. They said, you know, I was invited by Gagosian and I had the chance to buy an art from Gagosian. It's like the luxury industry. Today, the art industry is controlled by 5 galleries. Each galleries have something like 100 artists. And people go there and they have the, the flavor of the day. And it's the easy way to do it. It's not a judgment that I'm telling. It's just a fact for me. And I don't have anything against that. I don't think, because, you know, the biggest difference between what happened before and what's happening today, before people had time to make a collection. They take the time to make a collection. It was a kind of journey. Today, people have a lot of things to do. They have their business, they have a lot of things to do. So it's much easier for them either to go to fairs, either to have an advisor, either to just concentrate on 3 or 4 galleries. It's just because the time in which you are living is like that. I don't have any prejudice for that. It's just the difference between what I've known and what I'm experiencing today. Going public. This was something very, very important for us. When you decide to go public, you change totally the rule of a collection. Because when you decide to be public, you have a kind of responsibility to the public, but also the public also makes you make choices because you are public. You have to take into account, I should say, the idea of the public. It's very important. Naturally, being public doesn't mean being populist, but it becomes the game becomes more complex. What is interesting is that naturally we took some inspiring takeaways from museums. And I will give you some of what is for me today the most important takeaways that we manage with. The first is experience and to have fun are now crucial. I think that the idea of the museum as a repository of, I shall say, the old works, or the museum as just a place where you go there and you just go there to cultivate yourself, naturally it exists. But it's at all the reason why people go to museum. Why people go to museum? They go to museum to have fun. 81% of the people who go to museum, they want to have fun. So it's very important to understand what today is, I shall say, the engine of the success of the museums. So it changed a lot of things. It changed that today, experience has become the core mission of museums. And they have to redefinition themselves if they want to stay, I shall say, public, attractive. So this is the first thing, is the idea of experience and the idea of fun. The other thing which is very important.
The Metropolitan Museum of Art of New York has warned of a shortfall of at least $150 million this year.
We've seen with the COVID that there is no museum in the world which covers its overhead. No one covers his overhead. And I will give you a number given by the American Association of Museums, which will show you how the situation is critical. Today, you have the revenue per visitor, and it was a survey made out of 3,000 American museums. The revenue of the visitor is around $8. If you include in this revenue the shop and the cafeteria, if you don't include, it's $3.50. And do you know how much it costs a visitor for a museum? $53. So you can see that this is not tenable. You cannot keep it like this for a long time. And what we've seen during this pandemic, we've seen something which was become incredible. Decision become the museum buzzword of 2020. So this is, I shall say, the crucial question for the new decade, how the museum will be capable to sustain their mission. So, taking into account this number, we decided not to have a fixed place because we cannot sustain a fixed place with this kind of numbers. So what we decided to go into what I shall call a phygital space. A phygital space, and even more than that, a nomadic collection.
The Met draws about 6 million physical visitors a year, but also has 29 million visits to its website and reaches 92 million people through its Facebook page, which raises interesting questions about what we mean when we speak of the museum.
This is your Siri, which is talking all the time?
No, it's a voice, it's a reader voice.
Okay.
Because since people cannot read, it's better to give a voice.
Okay.
This is interesting. He's the digital, he's responsible of the digital in the Met, Mr. Srinivans. He was, sorry. And he really puts on the table the real question. What is a museum today? Because today, all the museums, the metrics of success of the museums are only based on the number of people visiting the museum. But what is the value of a digital visitor? You should, and this is the real question, and this is perhaps also the solution of bringing new types of revenue, is really to work on the digital distribution and the digital content, to monetize it and to bring, I shall say, another type of revenue. This is some of the offline exhibition. This is in Russia. We made an exhibition in the Jewish Museum of Tolerance of the collection. These are some of the exhibition we made by loaning works. We always loan works. We have something like, before the COVID, like 5 to 6 works, always traveling during a month. But also we decided naturally to go digital. We decided to go digital in 2005. And it's interesting why we decided to go digital. First, because I said to you, we could not afford to have a fixed place. But also we thought that the collection, in the spirit of a time in which we were living, has to be nomadic, has to go where people are and not just wait for people to come to us. It has to be reachable from all over the world with all types of medium. And so we decided to conceptualize the way we wanted to be digital. The concept for us was the Marcel Duchamp Portable Museum. And also, naturally, the André Malraux Museum Without Walls. And so we worked on this idea of having this portable museum. And if you look at what the New York Times just wrote a few months ago, one of the museums of the future will be portable and personal. What do we try to reach with this? What is our strategy in the digital world? First is to reset the experience. I think this is very important because when the COVID arrived, a lot of people, organizations, institutions, galleries, they went online. And for many people, and especially for me, to tell you the truth, it was very boring, because they just replicate the offline online, which is a big mistake. When you go online, you have to reset the experience, because online, the experience of online is very different of the experience of offline. The other thing which is interesting is being online, you can reach another type of audience, and what I shall call the missing audience, and I will explain you why. And the last thing was about gamification the collection. Why we gamify the collection? Because we had the experience of the museums, because we have the experience of the museums where people go to have fun, where we had the experience of the people going for an experience. And with the digital tools, you can gamify an experience. What are, I shall say, this was, for instance, some of our projects.
A second piece by Zhang Huang is peace. Peace consists.
We recreated the Grand Palais, and we made an exhibition with some of our works, and with glasses, like, you know, the time of Avatar, you could see the works floating in the air. And the other thing we done is we were the first one to have also on Second Life a cyber museum. We've done this since 2000. 2005, we went on the internet. It was the year of YouTube, but we went on internet. And from this time, we surfed on the wave of the digital. I shall say we surfed on the digital wave, going from one project to another.